Chicago, how we doing? Welcome back to another episode of the Bulls Roundtable. Today we are joined by an incredible guest. We were just talking about it before we started. Pepper's told him that the roundtable is kind of like Cheers. I guess I don't understand that reference, but for those of you out there who do understand, I'm honored to say that. But we got Doug Thonus here with us today. We're going to be diving into just him, man. I just told like all I've been hearing about him lately is that people call him the Podfather. I know that was something that Hayes always used to say, like, oh, like shout out to Doug, like he's the Podfather, he's the Godfather of all Bulls podcasts. So it's super cool to be sitting here with you today. We're gonna dive into that and then dive into the Big Red Bus. Shout out to C Red Fred. Dive into NBA draft intel and then just dive into some of these draft prospects. But yeah, Doug, how you feeling, man?
Dude, I'm living the dream. Excited to be here. It's always fun to just meet and talk with Bulls fans I've not talked with like face to face. It's like you talk with people on Twitter. It's always an interesting experience, but it's just
Absolutely
awesome to get people to know people, in person. So I think for you and Joe, it's the first time Michael and I have met before, but it's cool. Just cool to get to meet you guys and talk in person for a while.
Absolutely. Joe, Mike, you guys got anything you wanted to say before we start?
Man, welcome aboard. Welcome to Cheers. Everybody knows your name here. So we're grateful to have you, and it's sort of somber that we have you on the heels of losing Stacey King, but super grateful to have you on, and I'm sure we can maybe even chop it up about that as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I just want to say thanks for coming on, Doug. I think I met you in person maybe at the last Bulls content creator meetup that Melissa had hosted, but I think that was a while ago. So
yeah, last spring, I think.
Yeah. So appreciate you hopping on, man. And like I said, the Podfather nickname is definitely apt for you as far as Chicago Bulls content goes, because a lot of people I know, man, either got their start or have interacted with you in some fashion along the way. So really appreciate you taking the time out your day to hop on, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. So yeah, Doug. All right. Well, let's get into it, man. So first question I have for you is like, what is the Podfather? Even before the Podfather, like, what is just your origin story, man? Like, like what got you into basketball? What got you into the Bulls and stuff like that?
So the funniest thing is most people my age are Bulls fans because of Michael Jordan.
Right. I was named after him.
That's awesome. I became a Bulls fan because my childhood dream was to have season tickets to the Chicago White Sox. And I thought, man, this ballpark is really hard to get to. And the United Center is so much easier to get to. Maybe I'll do Bulls tickets instead. And so like this one year, like my first job out of college, I've got like some money and I'm single. And I'm like, I'm buying season tickets to something. Like I just always thought that would be a cool thing. And it was like 2001. And so like Bulls tickets were like readily available. And I just bought them. And so for a few years, I went to every Bulls game. And then I just became a huge basketball fan. I watched casually during the Jordan era, like everyone did in Chicago, but like I wasn't super into it, and then I became really into it because of that. So that was kind of the start of it. And then as I got so into it, I started looking for places just to share content and ideas. And I was really into Lost. I don't know if you remember that show or ever seen that show. It's an old one. I never understood it. Like it was just a really complicated show. Yeah. So I listened to a podcast called the Jay and Jack podcast about Lost, and they explained everything about the show and the podcast, and I would listen to it while playing basketball, and I was like, this is amazing. And so I thought, there's no Bulls podcast out there. I should just start the Chicago Bulls podcast. And so I wasn't the actual very first Bulls podcast. There was one called Bulls Cast that preceded me. They kind of folded pretty quick. They didn't stick around. So I was the first long-running Bulls podcast. I think it started in 2004. And, Fred started maybe a year after me. There's another guy, Brian Cush, who started around us. We both did it for like 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. And then, over time, people came in and out. Now there's the community is huge now. There's a lot of people doing it. But there wasn't really a big market for it back then either. There weren't many people who listened to shows. It just wasn't that big of a medium. Now it's like super huge. The YouTube stuff is super huge. So yeah, it's awesome just to see how the community has grown. How many great new people do it. It's like it feels old. And the nickname just came from Fred. Fred gave me like all these nicknames. For a while, I just fought against him so much. He called me the Great One. He called me the Podfather. And we would do our show, and I'd be like, dude, just stop it. Just stop it. This is embarrassing. And like, I don't know like how well you know Fred, but you can't stop Fred from doing anything. Like,
Yo, Fred's the man. Yeah, you cannot stop Fred. You gotta get out of his way.
His opinion. So
yeah.
So then it just kind of like after a while, I'm like, all right, I guess this is what it is now. Like it took me like probably like it's so stupid. It took me like 5 years to not be embarrassed every time he said it, and I think he would just say it just to embarrass me because it's just like
that sounds about right.
And like I don't know, like most people, I think get a little humble about what you do. Like you just like I'm just a guy talking about basketball, and so it's just weird to be revered in some kind of way by someone. It's just like a really strange feeling for someone to think about you in that way, and I'm like I've never done anything so great, like or at least so it's just strange, but now I kind of like it. It's amazing watching all these people who are so much better than me at all this stuff. Like everyone who does a show, like even this show, it's like amazing. Like I can't even do video. I got no video background. Like Hayes on Bull Central, like his
he goes hard,
incredible.
Man. Like it looks crazy, right?
The guys on CHGO, like they're like actually professionals. Like it's just like incredible to see all these people like just grow and turn this into like such a big thing. And I'm like, I never actually did any of that. My show's like the worst out of all these. So it's kind of funny how like that just kind of works out. You watch people come after you, like take something maybe you started and just like take it up like 3 notches. So it's just really cool to see that kind of stuff happen in life. To see people just do better than whatever the previous generation did something. It's just a really cool experience to see how the community.
You set the standard. It's kind of like basketball itself, like the players or just anything, because you got to think when you create the standard, anyone like you're inspiring the people, like all of us who are doing it now. So like I said, like Hayes just talked about you a lot, and you got to think like he said, like he used to sit there the way you would listen to I think you said the show about Lost, like that's how he would listen to you. So like it's crazy, like you said, like his production is amazing and all that, but like he sat there and you were the one that inspired him, and like that's just how it goes, man. Inspiration, creation creates inspiration, man. So it's just super cool hearing how humble you are too.
Yeah, and Doug's being way too humble, but that's kind of the great thing about Bulls fans. I mean, any of the top 3 markets, the New York, the LAs, the Chicagos, they're spoiled in a good way, because you can really go to any corner of the internet and find some really great content, whether it be Real GM, Bulls Beat, Bulls Confidential. I've been reading as much Doug and Fred and those guys sort of as long as I can remember. Even guys like Steph Noah and Will Gottlieb and Mark, who we shout out way too often, those guys who do great stuff. So pretty much, the Bulls community is spoiled. You can go anywhere and get such great content, and Doug himself included. And we don't need to say too much about Fred, one of the most unique personalities when it comes to positivity in the Bulls community. So yeah, definitely Bulls fans are spoiled, and I appreciate you, Doug, for including us in that group, man. But you're being way too humble, as the comments are saying. Shouts out to Hove Santana in the comments.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting because, things were so analog for us coming out of college, Doug. I'm the old head on here. So like, and I remember, I don't even think I had Twitter, and I was like trying to track where LeBron was going to go on Bloggable. And, when podcasts became really popular, you were always somewhere in the bull sphere doing your thing. And one thing I appreciate about you, Doug, too, is I used to work in corporate world in Apple and Amazon and stuff like that. And so I appreciate the analytical perspective. Really, so if you look at Will Gottlieb, he's sort of the logical one, right, on the CSGO channel. But you've always brought sort of the logical or analytical perspective to the game, and even the most recent. I forgot was it a tool that you came out with recently? Just all of that content is really helpful, and because if you think about it too, Doug, in the 90s or 2000s, that we weren't that sophisticated. I was on chat groups on the Tribune and ESPN, like talking Bulls, and so now, like now we're like, there's so much content, but I think that there's a space for the more analytical fan, the fan that likes the numbers and really likes to like dive in deep into to really how the process goes, not just from the emotional side. Right? And that's what I love about the Big Red Bus is you guys are like an odd couple almost, where you have like this really charged emotion and homerism from Fred, and then you got your sort of logical perspective as well. So it's super cool.
It's kind of funny because the way Doug and Fred are an odd couple, in a way, me and Guilty are the same there. And it's interesting how earlier he was saying he was named after Michael Jordan. I'm the second, so I was named after my dad, but also named after Michael Jordan. And I think plenty of people have pointed out that we are Michael and Jordan on the podcast, which is very crazy. Fun. But I just want to shout out in the comments saying Joe is multi-talented. Yeah, that's why Joe is our OG. He inspires us with his versatility, much like the players we are hoping to draft. But I'll let Doug go ahead. I want Doug to go ahead and talk about it. I believe it's NBA Draft Intel because you guys can go ahead and say it. Doug made a tool especially for people like me who are caring all about the numbers, trying to make sure Matas never sees a mid-range jump shot in his life. And my number one thing I want to give Doug a shout out for in all seriousness before he gets into it is a lot of people don't take constructive criticism well, or a lot of people I've seen, they blow up when people challenge anything they've created. And again, I won't speak for Doug, but from my personal, what I've seen, Doug has been very responsive to any changes people want, how people feel about the tool, what they want to see from it. He's been super responsive, which I think is cool for something that's obviously already pretty advanced to be in the beginning stages. But I'll let Doug talk a little bit about it.
I will say before, just to add on to that, like I think I told you or I told Kurtz, Doug I learned from him like 2 weeks ago. We were talking about that. Like we were just talking about how crazy and vicious the internet can be. And I was like, it was when I got him in the Discord. I'm like, hey man, I've kind of like tried to get rid of all like the bad energy in there. Like it gets crazy. And Doug was like, actually, I don't mind the bad apples. And I was like, oh shit. And then he was saying like, like as long as I've been doing this, you kind of just start to understand that people are just expressing like how they feel. And it's a lot harder to read tone over the internet. And he said like, I've gotten death threats, I've gotten the craziest things. He goes, I probably come off like an asshole myself, but it's the internet. Like you can't read tone and like none of it's ever really personal. And I told him, I'm like, man, like I needed to hear that myself because we know I'm prone to like, getting a little angry to say the least. And that just kind of like put it in perspective when I got a dude like Doug telling me, like how much he's dealt with. And at the end of the day, it is just people expressing their opinions and like not to take it personal. It is the internet. And so just shout out to you, Doug. I just want to add on to Mike's point there about you.
I appreciate it. I think it's just one of those things. All of us get better at dealing with people as we get older. Like if I think of myself in my 20s, I was a disaster. So like,
same.
it's just how it goes. Like you get better at some things and worse at others. Like I also have like way more body fat, and I have to be careful walking downstairs. So like it's just like some things improve and some don't. But NBA Draft Intel. If you didn't know or if you weren't familiar, and Joe probably remembers this from way back in the day, there's a website called draftexpress.com. I started.
I still use it.
Well, Draft Express is now gone. It's been gone for a while. Me and Jonathan Gavoni started it.
I was about to say, I thought he was still doing it.
Oh.
Yeah, he's on Twitter still, but the website is gone.
Oh, okay.
So he's still very active. But so we did
That's
this
amazing,
website in like maybe 2005, 2006. He started it, and then I said, like, you should make this feature. And he's like, well, why don't you just make it for me? And I was a software developer, and I said, are you serious? I'll make it for you. So I built it for him, and then all of a sudden we turned it, which was kind of like a draft forum and blog, into like a fully functional stats NBA site. We like aggregated all the data from all European basketball sites, and we started doing consulting for NBA teams. And so I worked with like 5 different franchises on like stats and other stuff back in the day. Built out like a lot of analytical features. Jonathan is an amazing scout and worked with the front offices and all kinds of stuff there. I have Mike Schmitz, who I believe is now general manager of the Portland Trailblazers, was like our staff writer.
I remember seeing his name back in the day when I first was on Twitter.
Yeah, a couple other guys who work for the site have like high NBA. I don't remember exactly where, but they're working NBA front offices and like I might actually be like the least successful person from the site today. But like, so anyway, I'd done that for like 5-10 years, and eventually it kind of folded. Jonathan got a job at ESPN. Mike went to work with him at ESPN, and we kind of just shut down the site. It was like, I always joke, there were like 2 of us, and we made enough money for 1.5 people. And so like, it just like, I had to go get a corporate job and whatever. But after that site closed, once the new AI tools came out, you could start developing a lot faster. I was like, I want to start bringing some of this kind of idea back. Like, I don't know if there's a really good draft website anymore. And so I had built this whole thing, and I just had it in my private laptop. So the initial version of it, I just aggregated like all draft content basically on the internet into like this thing. I had videos, I had like the profile pages from stuff, and I was just using it personally to do my own draft research. And what happened then was like, I'm like, oh, put this on the internet. People are going to love this. And like immediately, and completely fairly, some people who originated some of the content are like, dude, what are you doing? And I had like linked back all the content, and I thought it was fine because I linked back, and I'm like, people aggregate content, and like whatever. And I'm just like, but I'm not here to cause anyone problems. So when people complained, I just pulled down anyone else's content. So everything on the site now is generated by AI. Like it does research on like a skill I wrote to create AI profiles on people. I've got some cool stuff I'm trying to do, but honestly, my 10-year anniversary is like the week of the draft, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get it out before the draft. But by next year, I'm going to have like some really neat player comparisons that are like subjective and objective, which is, I think, is something that's not really done super well anywhere. To look at a guy and say like, here's what people thought of him, as a 19-year-old. Here are the strengths and weaknesses. Like, here are guys like how they turned out if they had injury concerns, or low floor, high floor, low ceiling, or
love that.
Low floor, high ceiling, or like whatever. Like if you ranked the guy this way, like how did they turn out? Like what were the odds? Like, so some kind of more like ways to take things that are traditionally more subjective and try and make them a little bit more analytical. So it's kind of like my long-term vision. And now it's got just some neat tools. If you want to look at draft history, like you can look at an executive and you can see all his draft picks, and it unwinds like all the trades. So like Doug McDermott is a Bulls draft pick instead of like Gary Harris and
Jurkic.
Yeah. Like, so if you go to any other draft site, those are the Bulls picks. But like this will unwind all those, and you can see who you ended up with to score your general manager. It's got like all the combine stuff. You can search across multiple years. You can kind of see how measurements fit by position. Like, so it's like a lot of just like weird niche analytical things like I care about. Like, how athletic is this guy really when people call him athletic? If I compare him to other small forwards, like is this really tall, or is this wingspan good for this type of guy? Like that kind of stuff. Like I just am interested in it. So I just built all this out for me, and then I'm like, well, there's probably some other people who care about it. And I just put it on the internet, and got lots of great feedback, got some negative feedback, tried to address all the negative feedback to the best I could. And, that's just what it is. So it's a fun thing. To be honest, I'm spending $500 a year to host it. So like, I'm making negative $500 a year. I don't know how long I'll keep that up if that's what it does. So maybe I'll have someone kind of come in and write draft content for me and turn it into like a, so put ads on it or something. I don't know. Like maybe there'll be some long-term vision there, but I don't think it could live on its own just as an AI reference site. I don't think that's interesting enough, so I probably did partner with someone. And I had a lot of people reach out to me about it. I just haven't had time to get back to it. So
I was going to say, you could talk to Gavin about doing it on the round table.
Well, if he wants to reach out, like if someone wants to do draft content year round,
there you go.
Sports expert, like I'm happy to like look at, talk with people and try and build out a platform for that too. It's just like I said, it's one of those things where I also work at like 70, 80 hours a week. So it's kind of hard. Like this is my weekend project, and then you only have so much weekend time. So
I hear that, man.
Out there. The AI makes it a ton easier, but like people are like, oh, you just did this in one prompt. I'm like, no, dude, this was not like still one prompt. It's way less than when I built Draft Express, which was like years of work putting in. Like this was, maybe a few hundred hours, but it's still still a good chunk.
It is a tool, man. People don't understand that it is a tool. It just all depends on how you use things. I think that's the main purpose of AI, was to aid us in things and like time management. It's not, I saw you like your comment about it at one point, like you said, like, dude, it's not it's not going anywhere. So it's like you just need to learn. I mean, like people got upset, and my grandparents probably got upset when they first saw planes and cars and shit. You know, every change is scary. You know, and adapting to change is scary. But I'm sure like we'll look back in about 3 years. I think it'll be a lot more. I don't want to say mainstream, but just more acceptable. You know, and like you'll look back and be like, damn, I think people will look back and say like, I wish I didn't cause as much of an outrage as we did in the beginning. But change is always scary for people.
It's a complicated topic. Like I don't want to make it
is.
sound like it's not. Like there are true potential really negative impacts to society, and I don't like. I don't know if those will happen or they won't. And neither does anyone else. And that's just how it is. Like you just don't know. So you know what I'm doing right now, making draft content, like that's not gonna have a big negative impact on society. But you know, like the tools itself, I get why people are mad. And I get why other people are like super excited because they can do things they would have never been able to do otherwise, and it opens up doors for them. So, you know, it's a little bit of both, and a lot of things are like that, and hopefully, in the grand scheme of things, the good outcomes are the ones that happen in a few years. But I definitely understand the concerns that people like Mark K have, and others like I mean, there are places where it's like they are using all the water supply to feed data centers, and like you can't get like local water good anymore. There's places where power is becoming really expensive because it generates so much power. So like there are real things. I don't want to like gloss over that and pretend that's not true or people are just crazy. Those are the things like this generation of people is gonna have to figure out how to solve. Like that's just part of the challenge of this generation of people.
That's really well said.
Yeah, I was gonna. Gavin asked a pretty good question of when does Doug end up with the NBA job himself, and I don't think too long, man. Mike Schmitz, who we were talking about earlier, he was working with Portland, and now he just got the GM job with Dallas, actually.
Dallas, yeah, man.
So a lot of movement with that, but I think if Doug keeps at it, man, I think it could be in the near future, sooner than we expect, but we'll see.
Imagine.
I would. To be honest, they probably can't afford me, like. The gist of it, I'm CIO at my current company, and
damn,
I work in finance, and I couldn't take an entry level MBA job. Like I would have to be a general manager, and there's no way someone's be like, "Oh, you never worked in the MBA, you're a general manager." Like,
Bryson Graham says, "Who says it has to be entry level, Doug?"
I don't think it's gonna happen, but you never know. If they come calling, I had a couple of chances to work in the league, and the one thing that always scared me off about it is you're settled, you're old like me, and you have a family, and these MBA jobs, it's like new general manager comes in and they clean house, and now you got to go look for one of the other like 29 teams in the league to be employed, and then you have to move your whole family, and like that's just not a style of life that would fit for me. It'd be amazing for some people, but it just wouldn't fit for me. So I had a chance to work in the NBA a couple times. I almost was working for one of the teams I was consulting for, it was like 20 years ago almost now. And then I was like, no, I can't move out to California. It's just too much. And then as it turned out, the GM who was going to hire me got fired the next year. And I'm like, thank God, I would have been canned. And then like this whole thing would have gone south. Like all of the things I was scared of would have just been exactly like that. So, I think it's a scary industry to work in. Like it'd be super cool. I'd be passionate about it, but it's just like it is a rough thing to work in career-wise. So I feel for all these guys. Like we talk about them, like even like AK, like whatever, can't stand at his job. Like it's like rough to work someplace and then like you get let go and now you got to move somewhere else and you hope you can do something. Like that is hard to do for all these people in this industry.
Absolutely.
You know what's interesting is there was this huge transition for Gen Xers, really. I mean, I think the millennials and Gen Z or whatever, it's almost like the 2K version of sports it's always existed. Big data's or data-driven sort of sports fandom has been around. I guess probably 15 years, Doug, 20 years, but when the Bulls were ending. Counting stats were based, right? Like points, rebounds, assists, right? Steals and blocks. Like those were the major stats that you were looking at. And even prospects, when you think about, like, for instance, the Tyrese Thomas selection or even Marcus Fizer, these were not, they were, I forgot did we have somebody on the show, Jordan, that was talking about this? But I don't know. It might have been somebody else's show, but they were just talking about how Krause was just using his gut. And it was an army of one. It was right, like it was just Krause, and he was using his gut. And so now these huge offices exist, and honestly, I actually think the sports will play a huge role in the future of our economy because sports are never going anywhere. And we'll need more sports as AI sort of finds its way into our everyday life over the next two generations. What do you think about that? Like, what do you think about the evolution of data and, sort of Moneyball as it pertains to basketball, how it's really influenced basketball now? And right, like, and it makes a player like Josh Giddey incredibly controversial because, on the surface, points, rebounds, assists, like, man, this guy is amazing. But there's other things that are missing, right, around his defense, around his the margins around his shooting. What do you think about that, Doug?
I think there's still, I think, a pretty wide variance between different teams and what they do. When I last had access to real data, which is now like 15 years ago or so, like just like real high-end data, it was pretty different what some teams had. And I only worked with a few, and other teams had. Like, there are teams that had like their own data. They were scraping their own video, and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Right.
And so they would have things like isolation stops, like this is what this guy is doing on pick and rolls. This is whatever. And they're like, it's like really advanced stuff. And so if you go to NBA.com, I have this crazy AI stat site that I built that's not public, that I just have for my owners, which on my laptop, because it would cost me like $100 a month to run it, and I just am not going to spend that much money. But I scraped all the data on NBA.com that has like the synergy stats, and it will like do like stuff by play type, and it creates like defensive matrices on guys and a bunch of kind of like stats that don't exist. And that data is like, I would say, like so, but the stuff like certain NBA teams have is incredible. The problem with like people like myself and others who are doing stats on publicly available data is like none of the good data is available publicly. So you just don't have enough. Like, the people have like true tracking data where you can see where guys are running. You can see like how much effort did they put on closeouts. How do they do all
I love it.
That kind of stuff is crazy, and you can really track then like how much defensive effort is a guy giving. But like there's no way with any public.
Yeah, that's crazy. Data, I don't know you could
that I could do that. If I had this play-by-play, like, this is the guy who's running 10 feet to get to his guy in like 1.1 seconds or whatever it is, and is covering more ground. Like, then you can really track a lot of interesting stuff. So the NBA has been like way behind, I think, a lot of other sports in some of these metrics.
Yeah. Yep.
Data just isn't useful enough that they have. But there are teams now that really do have extraordinarily useful stuff on their internal stuff, but we can't access any of it. So we're like arguing with like this just like peasant level data about like data stuff. But the NBA teams aren't. Like, and probably not all of them have all of this stuff, but some of them do. And maybe they all do now. It's hard to say. Like, again, it's been a long time since I had access to any of the professional level data feeds. But it was already like just what I had access to 15 years ago is still better than what's available publicly now. And I'm sure there's been huge advances for the teams that are really into it, and it's built out like big departments on it.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting, Jordan. I know you wanted to get into the draft. Before you? So I want to qualify some of your commentary around the draft, around what you just were discussing. So to me, especially as I've gotten older and I've coached and I have kids, I think work rate is so important. And I coach a lot of soccer, and obviously we have, there's a lot of sort of data that's being used to track your players and track their bodies, and they wear these, these chest plates, and you can track their movement and all that. One of the things that's really interesting to me is I think that players like Zach LaVine, or just to use an example, no offense to anybody who's a Zach LaVine lover, struggle with work rate. Right, so like if I were to look at a superstar player, a top 30, top 20 player 40 years ago, typically you could always say that guy is the hardest worker on his team. He's not just the best scorer. He's not just the best facilitator. He's also the hardest worker. And I think these new tools that are coming out, particularly the ones that you're talking about, Doug, can really expose players like a Trae Young, for instance, that just don't have a high work rate. And so a guy like Josh Hart or Alex Caruso or TJ McConnell, these players, you actually want AJ DeBonsta, or you want a Darren Peterson or Caleb Wilson or Cam Boozer. You want those players to have that work rate and the skills to score and do all the things that they do. And so one of the things I'm really interested to hear as you get into sort of the draft deep dive is who are the players that you think marry their effort defensively and also the skill level or the potential to have a high skill level as a superstar in the coming draft.
I would say this is going to be a little bit long-winded, and I'm
good.
Probably everything I say is long-winded, so maybe I shouldn't even preface that.
We're
this
here
is what
for
you
it.
get when you did a podcast for like 20 years that was just by yourself, like you just talked for 30 minutes. So I'm reading this book now. It's called Range, and I'm sorry I forget the author of the book. It's a pretty famous book, and it's about the case for generalizing your development prior to specializing your development. And effectively, They did a bunch of studies that show, like, if you play a lot of sports as a kid and then you specialize later, you'll be a much better player than what you specialize in, and if you specialize really early. And there's a lot of science behind that. I'm not going to get into it. But the analogy that I think is interesting here, so one of the examples they gave was about West Point cadets and their dropout rate. And I think the dropout rate was, we'll say, like 5%, so not very high.
I went to West Point.
Okay, so you probably know it's like this beast program, like it's like this grueling physical program. They're also filtering for really intelligent people. Like, there's a lot to get into West Point, right? Like, it's not an easy thing to get in or get through. It's not easy to get through the physical part. It's not easy to get through the intellectual part after the physical part.
Right.
And so they talked about, like, why do people drop out? And they said they kind of analyzed it, and they're like, it sort of seems like it's a lack of grit at the end of the day.
Yes.
And they figured out, how can we measure grit? So they did all these studies. They figured out how to measure grit. And when they started doing it, the grit study was amazingly accurate at, like, predicting who was going to drop out.
Really?
And then they took this research, and the person who did the research was, like, apologized for the research, like, a bunch of times. So then they took the research and they started applying it as, like, grit is this tremendous value. And what they didn't think, though, is, like, you've already filtered out the people who got here by, like, the top 1% of intellectual and physical prowess. So once you factor all of that out, the people who are left, grit's really important. But if you start looking at grit too early, like, you can be the grittiest guy on the planet. Like if I was the grittiest guy ever and you put me on an NBA basketball court, like, whoever the least gritty NBA player is still going to just kick my ass, right? Like, it doesn't matter because I don't have the physical skills to play. And so to kind of get back to this question, it's like, I agree, everything you said is super important, but you can't lose sight of the fact that, like, you first have to meet all of the other filters of, like, do you have the physical skills? Do you have the, like, physical profile? Do you have all these other things? And then grit and work ethic and like all these other things now are kind of like the difference between, are you like Michael Jordan or, I don't know, like an average guard or something? Maybe not, because he was the lead athlete.
Corey Benjamin.
Yeah, like probably not Corey Benjamin, but like Clyde Drexler. Like, maybe greatest difference between Clyde Drexler and Michael Jordan. Like, Clyde Drexler is still Hall of Fame amazing guard, but he's not Michael Jordan. And maybe grit was that difference there. So when I first look at the draft, like, it's always really hard because it's like, well, how do you score a guy who's like, I'm 10 out of 10 on athleticism, I'm 5 out of 10 in skills, I'm 7 out of 10 in grit. And it's like, well, are you going to develop the skills? Like, who knows? If you don't, you still suck. If you're a 7 out of 10 athletic, like Luka Doncic isn't like a 10 out of 10 athletically, but he's like probably a 10 out of 10 in skills. I don't know what I think his grit is, but I don't think it's like unbelievable. But like the skills are so good, and he's got enough of all the other stuff. And so then you have the piece of like we tend to measure athleticism really well in some ways and really terrible in others. And so like the ways we measure it really well is just like just jump height, burst, like things we can physically see, and the things we measure really poorly are the fine motor control, like to be able to steal a ball without fouling, to be able to have a really tight ball handle. Like those things we're not really good at measuring athletically, and so that kind of gets into this. Like it's just super hard when you try and score all of these things, and then like I'm not like a super NBA draft expert. It's wild because I built 2 major NBA draft websites, but only the tech side. Like I'm not actually a scout. Like literally all 3 of you are probably better scouts than me, like guaranteed. So I've done it for a long time. I've looked at a lot of players. I wouldn't say like my draft takes are better than the next guy. I look at guys. I've been right sometimes. I've been wrong other times. Just how it is. Like I would not even remotely put myself as a draft expert. For me, like Caleb Wilson is the guy who is like the grit guy. Like you're like watching him.
Really,
like,
more than Boozer.
Boozer is the just ultimate trained, experienced guy. I think because like a lot of these guys who have pro fathers, they've been getting like elite coaching, and I thought maybe like since they're like basically can walk. And the thing that struck me with Boozer is I don't know if you guys seen this video. I think it was him and Caleb Wilson doing the shuttle run at the same time, or maybe it was the lane agility test, but the one where they kind of like run in this box. And Boozer did it faster.
Yeah.
And you're like, he's nowhere near as athletic, but his movements were so extraordinarily precise.
Yeah.
And so part of that is just like someone has trained him.
Great insight.
From like this functional level to absolutely max out like every movement he does, because he's had this high level of training. And then maybe he's got just a little bit better fine motor control or whatever else. But like watching them, like Carlos Boozer is the most efficient use of his energy and athleticism like you're ever going to see. Like whatever he's going to be, he's going to just max it out. He's been trained. I actually think in some ways he has less room to grow because he's already had such elite training for so long, and probably is one of these guys who specialized really early for so long. And Caleb Wilson, I think, is got like more ceiling because there's like these little things you can improve. But so many guys never improve those things. Like just saying you have that ceiling, most guys never reach it. Most guys never are able to do that. So, but Caleb Wilson, like just watching his tape, just feels to me like the ultimate effort guy. But his effort is nowhere near as efficient as Cameron Boozer's effort is. So I think that's like the difference. And will Caleb Wilson learn to do all those things? Like who knows? Just because he maybe has a little bit higher ceiling if everything goes right. Like I would bet on Boozer being the better player. But if everything went right for Caleb Wilson, I think he would be the better player. It's just the odds of that. Like who knows how you calculate him? There's like so many other factors involved. But Caleb Wilson just struck me as the guy with just he's like the most dog like of the top 4. Like he struck me as having the most dog, and I'm like dude, I can't even imagine. Like I don't know what y'all think about Giddey, but like if you had Caleb Wilson and Modest Buzelis and Josh Giddey, like we're gonna have the best like TikTok in the league. Like it's just like it's gonna be insane the amount of like we have. So like I kind of look forward to that. Like in some ways, like
100%.
A couple of years in those developmental phases.
100%. So I was gonna ask you that like towards the end. Just like that kind of goes into it. Because I was gonna ask you like your thoughts, because I know Jerome Lorenzi put out that we worked out Kristen Eck, and then Brett Siegel put out that we worked out, I believe, Flemings, Wagler, and Mikel Brown Jr. So I was going to ask you, just like, what are your thoughts on each of those reports? Like, how do you feel about those guys? Like, do you think that we should, try to move up to grab one of those guards? Like, would you grab a guard if we move, or would you go like big? Like, what are your thoughts on those guys?
Under the assumption we draft Caleb Wilson, which just seems to be what everyone predicts it for. I always hate the idea of drafting for need, but if you have Modest and you have Caleb, and if you still have some faith in Noah Senge, and I'm sure Bryson Graham has a thought on that one way or the other, whether I don't know what it is, but he probably has some thought from his own draft research about how he might develop. That's like 3 guys who are kind of in the same general vicinity of each other, and boy, would I not necessarily want to draft another guy, because it's hard to develop 4 guys in basically the same role, right? Like that's tricky to kind of do that. So I would prefer to get a guard only if it makes sense. I wouldn't give up on talent to do it, but you prefer to add another guard with your other pick. And I've not gotten a chance to look at all of those guys yet. I've done about like half of the top 20, so I've not looked into Mikael Brown Jr. I'm not looking at Flemings yet. They're actually on my list. I have to do it for my next bigger bust. They're two of the guys we're going to talk about in the show. So,
hell yeah.
Those guys we're gonna be next. Chris Senek, I'm not like super high on him. Like at 15, I definitely don't think you got to move up to get him.
No,
but like I don't think he would be in my top 15. So it's like I'm not like seriously thinking about him. It's hard to guess who's going to be there, right? Like because I think you sort of know who maybe the top 9-ish guys are probably going to be, and then after that, I think there's a lot of wild cards. I'm kind of hoping Nate Ament, I think, would be a good guy if he's there.
Oh, interesting.
Cameron Carr is a guy who's projected to be there that I like. A little nervous that he's 21, but
Cam Carr.
Really like what I saw of him on tape. Phelan seems like would be a good pick. Little small, but who knows? So we'll see what happens. I'm usually just a wait and see. I never have too strong of an opinion on a draft because I've seen too many people I like just like absolutely suck. Like I was like, I love James Johnson and Kara Lewis Jr. and Aaron Neesmith, and Neesmith has kind of been okay.
Neesmith, man, yeah, I thought he was going to be.
It took him a while, but he's gotten there. So that one panned out for me with enough time. Then there's been like other guys I really liked, that turned out really good. So it's just, it is just kind of a crapshoot. I just think like these professionals know so much more than me, so I'm gonna just trust them. One real interesting thing I've not seen anyone mention, but I think may give us a really interesting draft room this year is Bryson Graham has done all of his draft research all year, right, with the Atlanta Hawks. Like he was studying the draft, I'm sure, before he came here, and he's studying it with the draft scouts at the Atlanta Hawks. Then you have AC Law, who's doing that same thing with the Oklahoma City Thunder all year. And then you've got all the Bull scouts who've been doing it for themselves for the whole year. And so now you're actually going to have like almost like the knowledge of 3 different draft rooms.
That's a good
That's super cool.
And like that's just a super unique thing to happen. This is the only year that's going to happen. And what a great year for that to happen. We got 2 picks. It's a loaded draft. So maybe, like oddly, I feel like more confident that the Bulls will sort of have the most voices in the room to really make a good decision. They'll have a lot of perspective, and they'll have perspective from like 3 different teams that do it in 3 different ways. So even like process-wise, they'll be able to share a lot of ideas. And so I think that's like kind of a really unique thing to have in this draft that I think is interesting. And so whoever they pick, like I feel like I've got a lot of confidence that
you trust them.
They're going to have like a really good, well thought out process to make that selection. Certainly, way more than I'm going to tell you about who I like by watching like an hour of YouTube videos and reading, like 15 scouting reports or whatever else. It's about, like literally, that's what I do. It's about like an hour of YouTube on each guy from like 3 or 4 people, and then just go through and read. Maybe another hour of reading about a guy, and like whatever. I think that's about what I can commit to. Like that's still like 30 hours of 40 hours of work to get through like the guys we might draft. So I sadly I just don't have more time than that. I wish I did. I wish I could quit my job and just do all the NBA all the time, but sadly it doesn't pay the bills in the way that I would hope it would. It's a fun side project, but that's what I can commit to.
And that's why Doug's the podfather. He totally stole my point, what I was going to say, which is I just love the various voices that we kind of have right now. You got Mervis coming from Orlando, and then I believe AC Law was actually coming from Brooklyn as his most recent stop. So even more so, you're talking about a team that was really committing hard to a rebuild. So, and then of course, again, you talked about Graham with Atlanta. And what I also like is you had teams that were kind of building various ways. You talked about the process. I'm excited for this offseason just because I feel based off of Bryson Graham's most recent history, I do think the Bulls are going to at least try to be active during the draft. Whereas we've seen the last regime obviously go through long periods of inactivity. So I'm excited just because I could see the Bulls actually having a pretty splashy draft night. I've said that a lot, which again, I just haven't felt that way, I don't think, in years about the Bulls franchise heading into a draft night kind of armed with assets and a decent amount of cap space.
And
On
what's
top of
cool
that, we
is
bring over my bad, Pep, but just to add on to your guys' point is like we bring over Kaufman as well and Jared Sutton. You know, Kaufman, like
right,
when I wrote that article on him, I did like a lot of homework on him. And like those guys were both known for just being for I know Kaufman for sure. He met Bryson Graham in New Orleans, and they were both known for modernizing scouting. So like we've been talking about how
That's
behind
awesome.
the times the Bulls have been for so long,
Right.
and now like to all of your points, it's like we've completely done like a complete almost 360 or a 180 and revamped the entire process. We have a like modernist name in the game in our office right now, and I know KC was saying like a month ago or a couple of weeks ago, he was saying that Bryson's not done either. Like there's more hires that are going to come on
Right.
top of the coach, obviously, and just more front office hires. So, yeah, I think it's just really cool that he's building out, like you guys have said, just an entire unit full of people that are going to make these
Yep.
decisions that are extremely tenuous about it. Excuse me.
What's interesting is that we really get an opportunity to. So we're going to triangulate to your point, but what I'm really excited about is that Bryson played, AC Law played, and to a certain extent, I do get the feeling that like hoopers that are smart and logical can make really good decisions.
Yes.
And like just to further the point, like to me, AC Law was a hooper. Like he was really, really good in college. He was I think he was a first round pick. Is a top 20, 25 pick. He was really good, and he understands what it means to be a hooper. Like he can sort of speak the language. He can he can read a scout that's blowing smoke. He can read a coach that's just coach speak. But back to your point earlier too, Doug, like some of these guys, they might look for something like, okay, is he a hard worker or is he gritty, right? So like there's levels to effort, right? Like there was a really popular book, I think it was Outliers, a Tipping Point, or something like that by Malcolm Gladwell. And they talk about this 10,000 hour rule, and that was really popular when Morey was coming up in the Sloan conferences and around data, because that's probably been 15, 20 years, Doug, probably since they started that. And I remember Jeff Van Gundy was like, if Michael Jordan was the 10,000 hour rule, Tracy McGrady was like the 1,000 hour rule. And so there is this level of like, okay, how can I tell the difference between Darius Acuff and Wagler and Flemings and Mikael Brown? And like, like sometimes I ask guys like, okay, like, is this guy a good decision maker? Like, I even think about, quite frankly, what was his home life like? How many high schools did he go to? How many colleges did he go to? Like what's his relationship? I mean, this might sound reductive, but what's his relationship like with his parents? These things, to me, these things matter because when you look at Michael Beasley, I mean, honestly, in terms of tools and skill, like amazing. Like there might not have been he was arguably better than Derrick Rose in that draft, but he didn't have the mental makeup to take the next level, to take it to the next level. Did he have a good career? He had a long career, I mean, that's great. You play 10 years. James Johnson, same thing. So like some guys, they can take it to another level because they have some intangibles that we don't really evaluate. And the thing that I believe that we're going to see with this front office is they're not just going to look at height, slap, right? I know he's talked a lot about slap, but I don't think that it's going to stop there. I think there's going to be a deep dive into the mental makeup of a player. And some of that is going to be intuition and just because they're hoopers and they know, and some of that is going to be, a very logical, analytical approach.
And I wanted to kind of tie together actually a few of the comments with kind of what Joe's talking about here. But Romy 1972 had asked earlier sort of what team would be willing to trade for the Bulls for them to like move up high in the draft. Obviously, no way of knowing that now. There have been reports that the Clippers are the most likely sort of trade down spot. I don't actually think they'll move off number 5, but if you're looking for teams, obviously in a very much win now mode with Kawhi Leonard, maybe if you overpay, you can really wow them with some draft pick future asset loaded trade. But the only reason I mentioned the Clippers at 5 is because later on, Ostrich 87, who I believe Jordan always calls Miss O, she commented. She commented, Wagler, always say yes to Keaton Wagler. And I do have him 5 on my personal big board. Obviously, as with this draft, everyone after the top 4 is pretty polarizing and there's varying opinions. But the reason I have Wagler at 5, I think the Clippers would take him if they keep the pick. And if I was the Bulls, I would be trying hard to get up there, is because he doesn't turn the ball over a lot. He gets to the free throw line a pretty healthy rate. And he can shoot the ball from 3 off the dribble or off the catch. So I just think when you mold all of those things together, I'm not worried about a lack of athleticism. And then to bring Joe into it, I really liked what he talked about when you talk about the makeup of people. Obviously, NBA teams are doing stuff that casual fans never think of in terms of background on their family, their upbringing, sort of mentally how they are. And my favorite thing with Wagler is he was overlooked as a high school prospect. This is a guy who's a really good high school basketball player in Kansas. Exactly. Underdog, as Pep just said, was not recruited from what I know of by the Kansas Jayhawks at all. Goes to Illinois as a player who's expected to be pretty good, and now is talked about potentially being a top 7 pick in the NBA draft. So when you're looking at prospects, or at least me personally, I'm looking for what was their sort of workload, their usage rate, sort of what were they doing for their team, how often were they sort of turning the ball over it, and then the most importantly, sort of how was their development? And I think with Wagler, I saw him improve so much in a short amount of time that I have no doubt that with NBA training, Keaton Wagler is going to be a productive player. As far as how high that ceiling sort of goes, that's up to him. But I think he would be a great pick if you're sort of trying to start your team off having a lot of size and length, even if he doesn't necessarily fill the athleticism sort of part of that.
Awesome.
So, Doug, are you locked in? So you like Wilson. I know you said you like Carr. Carr's like I think everybody's got a little bit of a mid-round crush on Carr. Are there any so I was really there was a moment where I really loved Mara. And there's this part of me with Wemby coming along where and to a certain extent, I think, I know might sound sacrilegious, but I think Chet's a big guy. I do think that the big man has a role in the future of the NBA.
Absolutely.
And so there's a lot of big guys in the draft. Is there any part of you that would be like, all things being equal, if we had to, we could pick Steinbach, or if we moved up? I saw somebody on Twitter say, if we moved up, I would rather move. I think it was Drew Stevens. I'd rather move up to go get Mara than to go get one of these guards. Is there any part of you that's like, yeah, we got to go 4 or 5, or we go 4 with Wilson, move Buzelis to the 3, then we get a guard, and then at 38 we got to get a center?
I don't think I would count on 38 in any way, shape, or form ever playing. Like, you should never count on a second round pick ever being anything. Like, they might, but you should never count on that being like part of your future. That's like a guy who has a super high chance of washing out, like 75% chance of just not going to be in the league, and 25% chance, like most of that is like role player and the like backup caliber guy. Like, so some guys make it. It's just like the amount of hits there is so small that it's just not worth considering that is like something that matters. It's like how I generally look at it. I don't care for Mara at all. I don't think he'd be in my top 15. It's probably like a really
interesting.
Yeah, really? That is interesting.
He's just not athletic enough to me. I would take Morris over him. Like, I just like just watching them, and I take Yaxel over him. I'm just like, doesn't look like he has enough impact to me. Like, he's not going to be anything on offense, and I just don't think he's going to be fast enough to do anything against NBA guards on the perimeter or to switch or whatever. Like, he'd be fine defending the paint when he's in the paint, but it's just like, I just don't think that can be your only skill if you can't also defend the pick and roll, if you can't get on the perimeter, if you can't do some of those other things. I just don't see Mara being able to do that in the NBA. And then on offense, it's like, now you've got another guy who's like, you just can't do anything with if he's not like right next to the basket, and then that's hard for guards who are trying to drive. Like, I just think it's going to be like way more problematic to have a guy like him. And then like Morris, I just feel like Fred, and this is something. I'm totally stealing this from Fred. Like, so Fred sold me on this. Like, I didn't start out this way, but he gave me this argument, and then like I thought about it, and I'm just like, I just believe it. Like he's like Morris Johnson Jr. Every time he played, he's better than Mara. Every time he actually played, he's better than Mara. Mara's never like a top like 2 guy on that team ever. Like there's no reason you should ever draft him ahead. Like he was not better than these guys in college. Like why would you think he's going to be better in the NBA? And then on top of that, it's not like he's young. It's not like he's like 19. He's 21 already. So it's not like, oh well, he's got youth on his side and he's going to develop all these skills. So again, not my original thoughts, but when I heard the argument, I'm like intuitively that makes sense to me. And it matches what I saw when I watched those games. And so I'm like, yeah, that kind of like fits to me. Like I just don't think he's like, to your point, I just don't think he's a hooper in the way these other guys are. Like he's just like a guy who's just like so big. He's like he's got all the size and whatever. Like it's like some guys like end up at basketball because you're like 7'3" and like what else are you gonna do?
He's more Luke Cornett.
Yeah, like I make a lot of money, but Luke Cornett can shoot. Like he's like Luke Cornett on defense without the ability to shoot a 3. I don't know if Luke Cornett's doing that so much anymore, but like he was a decent shooter. Like he has like some range.
Robert Ory. Robert Ory.
Yeah, so like I just don't see that out of Mara. So I definitely wouldn't trade up for him. If we took him at 15, I wouldn't like totally hate it because we've not had anyone who could block shots for so long, and like it's fine. Like he wouldn't be my pick, but I'd be like, hey, if the front office, to my point earlier, liked him, I'd be like, okay, let's go. Let's see what this guy can do. But it wouldn't be my selection. Again, it's a non-draft expert. Just watching what I've watched.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be my choice or the way I would go. I'd be looking for someone who just fits to me what I think the modern NBA has to have. And I just think if you're a big man now, you need to block shots, but you also need to be able to play on the perimeter defensively.
Right.
I think like the modern NBA is not going to have these 270-pound big men. Like you're going to have like these 240-pound, 7-foot plus guys who are still athletic enough to move around on the perimeter. Kind of like lankier, longer guys. More like Chet as an example you brought earlier. Now, obviously, you wish you had Wemby. There's not going to be another Wemby, so But like,
no, he's
like,
cooked.
But like that type of guy, that profile, I think is going to be more in the modern NBA. Someone who's got a little bit of ball skills, who you're not maybe working around so much in offense, who can still block shots. I don't think the bruising center is just going to be like a big factor going forward. It just wouldn't be. It's kind of like Giddey as an archetype. Like you can see, he's got like all these skills. Like he's like amazingly skilled player. Like just his court vision is great. His passing is great. His rebounding is great. Like he does a lot of really great things. And then you're like, but it's just so hard to work around the things he's not great at. And I think Mara's one of these guys where it's like, yeah, the stuff he's really good at is super valuable and is super great. And then it's also really hard to work around all the stuff he's not good at. And you just don't want to stack guys like that on your team where it's like, well, how do I work around this guy's whatever? And of course you can't have all perfect players. So you have to, and sometimes it's worth it. Like sometimes it's just worth it to get a guy strength you need enough. But I just, especially with Giddey, I wouldn't look to get a second guy like who's going to be a hard to work
that's
around
limited
guy.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Johnson, like like to use a hockey analogy, so you got like your top 6 guys, right? Line 1, line 2 guys. Then you got third line, check line guys, and there's a little bit of like, do you want to use a top 15, 20, top 20 pick on a guy who's the 9th best player on your team, right? And so the question I guess I would have is, and I love Johnson, can he play small ball center? I know that there's been some comp to Robert Williams. Do you see him in that light, in that vein, maybe like a Jalen Duren, where he's a little bit of a, he might not be as tall, in terms of like 7'1", 7 feet, but he could play center and be super effective?
I'm not sure, but I think so. I mean, he weighs 250 pounds. So, like, he's just talked about how he's
powerful. He's a brick house,
and then I just picked a guy who's really big. But he's super athletic, right? Like, he's got a huge vertical. He's got a 7'3.5" inch wingspan. So he's got really long arms, really athletic, lots of bounce, really high energy, enough weight to kind of like to hold his own. I think he's going to be fine as a small ball center, or even I'll just say as a center. Like, not even as a small ball center. I just think he'll be fine as a center. Like, if I were to compare him to Nikola Vucevic, who's clearly a pure center, where he's like an inch shorter, but he's like way more athletic and longer arms. Like, Like people weren't like, oh, Vooch isn't big enough to be a center. Yeah, so I just think he'll be fine as a center, or as a power forward. And yeah, we'll see. But I think one thing, and I don't know if you guys saw Sam Presti's NFC season press conference. I posted it today on my Twitter page. It's an hour and 40 minutes.
It was really good.
It's like unbelievable. I watched the whole thing just because I love listening to Sam Presti talk. Like he's just so smart. But one thing he said is, like,
oriented.
People overrate draft picks. Like they think about like the 3% chance this guy is going to work out, and they ignore like the 97% chance they're going to fail. And said, like, if you came to your boss and said, "Here's a plan that's going to fail 97% of the time. How far do you think you go?" And he said, like, when you look at these later picks, you have to look at them as like you are probably getting a role player. And if you just gamble on the guy who's like, well, maybe if everything works out right, he'll be a star, you're going to lose almost every time. And it's fine to take your chances on guys you believe in or whatever, and that is what it is. But I think at 15, I look at a guy, and if they said, like, I'm really confident this guy is going to be, the sixth best player in my rotation, which is maybe clearly not a starter, maybe not even like your sixth man of the year, because often your starters aren't your five best guys. They're sometimes your three best guys and a couple of guys who played well with them. Like Okoro might start, who's probably not a top five player. It might be like your sixth best player. Like, I'd be happy with that if we got that out of the 15th pick. And do I think Morris Johnson Jr. could be that? Yeah, I think he could be like that type of player.
Yeah,
I don't think
that makes sense.
A great player, but I think he can be a really good, a solid player. Hayden Steinbach, I feel the same way about, like, a guy who, like, I just feel like he'll be a solid player. Like, he does enough things. Like, watching him, like, yeah, I just see how this is going to work. I don't think he's going to be a great player, and I'm okay using the 15th pick on a guy who's like, this is going to be a good rotation player for us. Caleb Wilson is our upside pick. Modest Buzelis is still an upside guy in the roster. I'm okay taking guys like, I'm really happy this guy's going to be a decent rotation player. Maybe Noah Senge is still a upside play. I'm not super high on that, but you never know. Like, he certainly has the measurements and to potentially be that type of guy too. So, I think I look at it that way, and just right now, I'd be okay taking a guy who I don't think is maybe star potential with that second first-round pick, knowing we're getting star potential with the first one.
Yeah, and Reese. Go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, Reese in the comments mentioned beef stew as a comparison for Morez Johnson, and I like that a lot. Isaiah Stew from the Pistons, but I was just gonna say a reason. I'm not too high on Mara either. I think he'll be a pretty good pro, definitely first round pick. I just wouldn't take him lottery, mostly because I think the archetype he's going to be. I think that's kind of maybe a very effective backup big, not necessarily a starter, just because I don't think he's going to be a floor spacer, and he's not a great free throw shooter, I should say. Chris Sanak Jr., who the Bulls worked out recently, I do like him just because I feel like he brings some of the rim rolling, and then he shot 33% from the three-point line on limited attempts, so not great, but a guy who looks like he maybe one day could be comfortable being a floor spacer, which is one of the reasons I like Morez Johnson. He didn't do that either in college, but I believe he shot around 78% from the free throw line. So Morez is someone who I think of as a physical bruising guy, but at the draft combine, and then again from his free throw numbers, maybe shows the capability with NBA training to maybe develop that jump shot in some form. So I definitely agree with a lot of what Doug said there. With the 15th pick, I just did want to ask Doug quickly. I know he said, a lot of these guys, you're looking at the 97% chance they fail. But when you're looking at that 15th pick, which you're not expecting too much, are there any prospects just from what you've looked at where if they were available at 15, you'd be pretty shocked and you think would be necessarily labeled as a steal at 15? Or are there no names you kind of be surprised there? I feel like Nate Mint, not necessarily a surprise, but maybe a guy in that name that you mentioned.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he's there, and I would probably happily take him. He's maybe the anti-grit guy in a way. Like, he has like all of the physical tools, and you're kind of like, why hasn't this worked out yet? And then you're just gambling that, well, it didn't work out yet because he's 19 and he just needs a little help in some of these other areas. Like, you never know how a person's going to grow. We started off this podcast really early talking about even just personal growth in our attitudes towards people rude to us on the internet, which is like a really weird thing, but you do just get better at that. I'm sure all of you are better at that today than you were like 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever, like you just get better at that.
5 minutes ago.
Yeah, 5
Yeah, I'm about to say 5 minutes.
Right.
So you never know like how someone's going to grow, and so any of these things people are poor at, like they have a chance to probably get better outside of like your physical height and body type is, maybe some of the 19-year-olds will still grow a little bit, but like generally that's probably pretty fixed by the time you get to the draft. And then to some degree, your athletic profile, while it can get better, it's probably not going to get like an order of magnitude better. Like you're probably not going to go from an average athlete to an elite athlete. Maybe you can go from an average to slightly above average. You can get more athletic certainly, but it's not going to change radically. And that's why those traits are sometimes the ones we look at the most, because you're kind of like, these are locked in, and I have some faith that anything else with the right training can get better. So Nate Ament is like the guy. If he fell, I'd be a little surprised. I'd also take him. Ricky O'Donnell had said like he was hearing, or maybe he thought, I forget. It's something I heard third hand, so I didn't actually hear it from Ricky. But one of the shows on Cast Considerations, he mentioned that he thought Kingston Flemings might drop to 15 and be available.
Yes. Yep.
And I thought, like, that would feel like a home run to me. And then
That's a steal.
The other thing I always think is like, never catch a falling knife. If you ever heard that like expression, that's stock exchange. Like, so like sometimes when guys are falling, there's a reason, and like maybe everyone knows something. Like, and sometimes like let's be honest, like all of the draft scouting people do, they kind of copy off each other. I mentioned my process. I'm watching an hour of YouTube videos. I'm watching or reading like maybe 10 different scouting profiles. A lot of those profiles have been formed by reading other people's profiles. The scouting videos are, kind of can be similar based on like talking about things you pre-read from like whatever else. And so like, even when you try and source things through a lot of sources, because you're sourcing through other people who probably also source through the same people, like there becomes a huge amount of groupthink. And actual NBA scouts are not like looking at all the same sources we are to come up with their opinions. So when a guy falls, it's like actually because a bunch of real professionals doing it all differently see something different. Probably there's something there. There's a reason. Like, and it's just like there maybe was a little bit too much groupthink from everyone else who got us to the point where we all collectively thought these guys were higher. And that's not to discredit anyone. It's like, yeah, I've spent a lot of time like researching these guys. But, it's still like it's using all sources. Like I did not watch, tens of thousands of hours of college basketball to form these opinions. And kudos to the people who do put in all the time and effort and real work. So any opinion I have is it's really just derivative of other people's opinions that are subject to a lot of the groupthink and other stuff. And I just think that makes it tricky to know. Like you accept your own limitations based on what you can do when you enter the game. And it's like I have real deep opinion about the Bulls because I watch like every Bulls basketball game. And so my opinion about the Bulls is not formed by listening to other people. It's based on my own. I don't like read a lot of or listen to a lot of other content because so my opinion is just based on what I see and that's it. Right. But on the draft, it's not at all. It's based 100% on what other people have said. And so it's just like I recognize the weakness of just like, yeah, this isn't my eyes. This is like curated scouting videos that someone put together that can make someone look any way they want to and fits into their stuff. So I just, you guys may have like way better opinions than me. I have no idea how you do your research, but it's just, I think it's really hard if you aren't someone who watches a lot of college basketball to come in late in the game and then form a really deep opinion. You can have your favorites, but you have to recognize like you're probably just biased based on like guys you like. Like I love No Ceilings NBA. If they say something, I'm like, yeah, I just believe it. I'm like, I love these guys. Like they're so smart. They're so good. Like, I just believe in what they say. Like I watch their videos. I'm like, these guys really know what they're talking about. And but then that means like my opinion is really the opinion of them, and it's not a real opinion of mine. It's just me regurgitating something someone else said. So I don't mind being honest about that kind of stuff. It's just is what it is.
No, that's
like,
real.
You can't be an expert about everything. I know about like 3 things in life that I'm an expert at, and the NBA draft is not one of them. But I talk about it a lot for someone who's not an expert in it, which is kind of silly in a way. But what else are you gonna do on a Bulls podcast at draft time? And one of these things that's funny. You guys, maybe if you're interested next year, you can come out. I do an NBA draft party every year. I invite anyone on the internet who wants to come. This is only the second year, and I think it's like 22 years I've not hosted it because my wife and I are going. It's our 10th anniversary. We're going on a
happy anniversary, man.
And our anniversary is over the draft this year, which is June 25th, and so we're gone that week. So everyone who comes to my party every year is like already like, come on, dude, this is the first year you're not hosting it, and we've got the 4 pick of the 15th pick. What's going on? I was trying to sell my wife. I'm like, maybe we could go different. Like, yeah, that's not.
She ain't trying to hear you. You call daggers.
I'm surprised I'm still alive after that.
I'm about to say, I can't imagine the daggers.
So I'm still here. That's how great she is. That like she did not just immediately kill me on the spot. But yeah. So but next year, I'd love to have you guys over. It's a great group of guys. We have anywhere. I think the most I had is 40 crammed into my basement. But
oh wow.
But yeah,
we'll be there. I'll be there.
Good stuff. So yeah, it'll be fun time.
So question, Doug or Mike, did you want to say something?
Say that again.
I just had a question for him, but you can go ahead. I thought you had to say something, but Pep, you wanted to ask him something.
Oh, no. Yeah, Pep, you're all good.
Well, the question's for the group. As we were talking, one of the things that strikes me about the OKC process is that they seem to nail the floor of the players that they select. So they're not, and really, you just sort of made me think of it, Doug, as you were talking, that they're not always saying, hey, I'm going to get – they almost draft as if they're like a hockey team. They're like, I know this guy can be the 8th best player on the team. I know that this second Jalen Williams or Wallace or Mitchell or, insert name can be a rotational piece on a contending team. And it seems to me that the Spurs in OKC seem to sort of they perfected the art of getting a guy that they know can be a rotational piece. I don't think that the Bulls have ever sort of like selected like that, and we've had probably 5 drafts where we had 2 first-round picks, 2 top 25 picks. What are your thoughts on that, and how do you think that plays out into Graham's building of the team?
I think it's if you go way back to the early John Paxson years, and I'm a big fan of John Paxson's era as general manager.
Me too.
I know a lot of people are not, but like, he started off with Luol Deng and Ben Gordon in one draft. They got Kirk Heimer. Like, if you look at all those picks, like they took Joakim Noah when the whole world said we should take Spencer Hawes. It's kind of funny because the only pick I feel like they deviated from their general way of picking guys was Tyrus Thomas, when they're like, screw it, we got to get upside. When like everything they have ever done in the past screamed that they would take LaMarcus Aldridge. It was just sort of hilarious that was like the time they deviated from their kind of MO of like, safe picks, high floor, like good character dudes, like, and so like in that era, I think we really had that. And then you got into this run after the Mirotic Butler draft, which also had that. I guess we got 2 guys, and those were like late picks too, right? Like we got those 2 guys. I think it was 23 and 30, 23 and 29, something like that. Then you go after that, and you had like a bunch of drafts in a row where the draft was just really bad. Like if you just look at those drafts, it was like 4 drafts. The draft was just bad. The Bulls didn't do great in them. But like Bobby Portis was like a pretty great pick at 19.
Mirotic was a decent pick.
Yeah, he was in the draft where they were still good. He was the last good draft they had. But then like Denzel Valentine, terrible draft. Like there's no one good in that draft.
Oh no, like, Valentine. God.
McDermott.
The McDermott draft was terrible. That trade was super terrible. I hated it at the time. But like, so you kind of had the stretch where the draft was a little bad, and then it feels like whether you put this on Matt Lloyd or not, Matt Lloyd was known as one of the first analytical drafters. He left, and like the draft immediately became like awful right after he left. And I don't know if he was head of college scouting at the time. I don't know if something fell apart. Again, the draft started getting bad kind of around the same time. So it feels like when he left, though, they lost something of their process. Maybe that was when Gar Forman started taking more control and John Paxson was kind of on pseudo-retirement. Maybe that was a part of it. Maybe they had some other scouts, like we just don't even know, that like left. Maybe Matt Lloyd poached a couple guys he liked and the scouting department got weaker. Like who knows? But like they seem to really lose their draft mojo. I can't remember if it was 2011 or 2012 was the last. I think it was 2012 was the last good draft they had. And then it was just like pretty bad for like 5 years, 6 years. And AK like let's just be honest, he was just kind of terrible at everything. Like, just like he just was like the draft didn't go well under him. Like he didn't pick well. You know, the 2 picks he had were Io DeSumo, who was kind of his average draft position was like 27 on mock drafts, and he fell to 38. And like we were all screaming in my draft room like to trade up for him like earlier. Like so it wasn't like that was some super ingenious pick. And then Modest Buzelis was like mock number 5 and fell to 11. And it's like, okay, well, you took him, great, good for you. But like, it's not like, oh wow, you know, it's like this guy fell in your lap. Like, you know, like I just then the picks that were like, you're like, well, I have no idea what to do here. Like Patrick Williams was a pick where it's like the board was wide open. Like that was not an obvious selection. And it's like you reached for a guy who like a month before the draft was like mocked at like 15, and you took him at 4. And he was like the worst guy in like the next 10 picks, except maybe Killian Hayes, who like tore his ACL. And like, so it's like the only guy who did worse than you is the guy who got like a massive injury that changed his whole career. Like, and you moved up, you took him like way ahead of where everyone else had him. So you took a huge reach on a guy who sucked, who didn't start, like had all his problems. And you look at like Dalen Terry, it's like he was the next like 5 guys picked, I think, after Dalen Terry were like all like decent players, and you're like, what did you do here? It's like you reached into a bag with like a nickel and like $500 bills, and you pulled out the nickel. like what were you doing?
What happened there?
And maybe it was in the next 5, but I feel like there's a bunch of like good players. I think Walter Kessler was like right after him.
Yeah, he was.
Christian Brown, I think it was like right after him. And so, and then he didn't have a lot of selections because he also just traded away all his picks like an idiot. So like, didn't understand where the Bulls were. So he didn't have, so it's just like we've not had a lot of opportunity. You know, AK was just bad. So we talked about earlier. Like I have like way more faith that it's going to be better now. Like I hope it's going to be better now. I have no idea what Bryson Graham's going to do. The one thing that scares me that he said is like I'm always looking to trade up, and as a math guy, I'm just like I just feel like it's just a bad idea generally. Like I just feel like it's a bad idea generally to always trade up because usually you're gambling on your hunch being better and smarter than everyone else when you do that. Like you're usually saying like I know more than everyone else and I'm more right than everyone else. And I just feel there's so much information parity that's just a really dangerous thought to have, to think you're smarter than everyone else. And I think so. I think like that philosophy scares me. But that isn't to say you can't be right. Like you can be amazingly right when you do that. It depends on the circumstances. It depends how much the cost is. Like there's like so many things. Like just as a generic philosophy, like saying like I'm always looking to trade up, like scared me as a philosophical basis. Like there's times you would trade up, there's times you wouldn't. But scared me as a philosophical like thing. This draft, maybe I'd do it because there's depending on the cost, I wouldn't give up a mint. But like if the right deal's out there, I would do it. But like. That's the only thing that maybe scares me, but I love the way our draft think tank, I guess so to speak, has been built out, like we talked about earlier. So I have a lot of confidence. It scares me a little bit to think we might be like, here's an extra 2 first-round picks to get from like 15 to 7. I really don't want to do that, but like, we'll see what happens.
In this class, I think I like this class enough where I would try to move up from 15. I think at 4, you just stay put because that's a little risky. But I did just want to say I support Doug's point completely because what's so crazy about that is when you make that big of a gamble, depending on the assets you're giving up to move up, it doesn't even become a case of you being right. It becomes a case of almost how right you are, even if you can become right. Because I think a lot about something I argue with my friends about, which Joe Dumars obviously got killed, presently included, for the trade he did moving up to get Queen. Then you look at Derek Queen having, depending on how you feel about team success, a pretty successful rookie year by most accounts. And it's like Joe Dumars probably feels pretty validated about giving up that future asset to get Queen and Fears, who both look like great young players. But then at the end of the day, I'm not sure I really trust Queen or Fears, more so Queen, to necessarily be core players on the next winning Pelicans team. So it's like, he won the trade in the sense that he got the guy he wanted and feels probably still right about it. But how right will he be? Will 5 years from now, will it still feel like the Pelicans didn't give up too much? And I guess a lot of that depends on, again, what the Hawks do with their pick that they got from New Orleans. So I just support Doug's point where moving up always sounds great on paper. And then 5 years from now, it's like, man, we might as well stayed at insert pick. So I think it's definitely too risky. I like Bryson Graham trying to make his imprint, but I look at the 15th pick as like found money at this point, seeing as they had the luck of jumping up to the number 4 spot.
It is a good year to take a chance, like you said. And then also when you have 2 picks, you have a little bit more leeway. But that just gets down to cost. Like there's a cost I move up and there's a cost I wouldn't.
Yep.
Yeah, so it always depends on the individual deal. So we'll see.
So
I have a
Doug,
lot of faith.
that kind of goes into, we got a couple more points here, but I remember you were one of the people, and shout out to my guys Chris and Laro from Swish Theory, but I know like you and Chris at the time of the Vooch trade, I had just started. I'll never forget it because I was working construction, so I'm outside. We made that trade. I dropped my tools, man. I was so excited, just so I'm like, hell yeah, like we're doing stuff, man. Like just being a kid, just being excited. And then I remember I got home and then I saw your tweets and you were like, man, hell no. I was like, man, what's this dude talking about? Hell no. So like you and Chris both are like, man, no, this is not a good trade, man. This is not. We could have done better. And it was like one of those things, like your tweet and Chris's tweet, it made me think, and I was like, damn, all right. So I went and looked into it, and like what you guys were saying, it's just like, it's not that Vooch was a bad player, but we gave up way too much for him and to get the skill set back. The fit wasn't right. And I just remember thinking back then, like, damn, like, what if this dude's right? And it turns out you were right, So like now, present day, are there any players that you think are untouchable on this team? I would bet to say you're going to say no, but like, how do you feel about, like, would you move any of these guys, or do you think we should try to move any of these guys, for the right price? Like a guy like Jalen Smith and Trey Jones, even Giddey, Modest.
Yep. I would move anyone for the right price. And I think the question is, like, what is the right price? And how likely is someone to give you the right price? It's like, and it's always hard. It's just super hard to make a trade work. That's why like teams aren't trading their whole roster all the time, because it's like you have to give up something to get something. So you kind of have to give up something that doesn't make as much sense for you and makes more sense for someone else. And there's a lot of ways fundamentally that works, right? Like you give up long-term value to get short-term value because you're thinking long-term and you're trading to a team that's thinking short-term. Like that's one way that can work. You can give up some type of value for financial savings, like you're trying to duck a tax, and you can do something, and that works. But you kind of have to find some type of asymmetrical value proposition where you and the other team are chasing different things. Maybe it's like similar value, but of different positions and different skill sets. But you have to create a win-win to make a trade work. Like both teams,
exactly.
Like there aren't idiots in the league, generally speaking. Like they don't last long. So it's like you're trying to find something that fits the needs of someone else, and they can fit your needs. And so you look up and down the Bulls roster, and I think the most likely player to be traded is Trey Jones for value, because it's like I look at Trey Jones and like I think he's a really good player for $8 million a year, and you've got that for 2 more years. And even if he has like some critical injury, you've got like the option on that 3rd year. You got a contract. Like that's like super valuable to a team that's like really good, needs a backup point guard, and is like fighting the second apron. And then you got the Bulls who are also like way under the cap, and you start thinking like, well, what if I can trade Trey Jones for like a bad contract that's like $20 million a year, and I absorb an extra $12 million, and I give him a better player, and now they're gonna be like, yeah, for you saving me $30 million in luxury tax payments and giving me a better player, I can give you these type of draft assets. Like it's an easy to figure out way where you both win in a way that matters to both of you.
Yep.
When I look at things, like most of the trade discourse is going to be about Josh Giddey because he's the most polarizing player. But when I look at Josh Giddey, I'm like, well, where is the value prop? Like, who is the team that is like, I am a Josh Giddey away from something, and I'm willing to give you something you want right now to get Josh Giddey. Like, it's like Josh Giddey's best use case is on a team like us. That's like, oh, I'm developing a bunch of young talent, and I want a passer. And like maybe I don't need a 16-game playoff player right now. And so that team does not want to give us something we want for Josh Giddey. Even if, like, say Brooklyn wanted Josh Giddey more than us. Like, well, Brooklyn's probably not going to be like, here's 2 first-round picks for him, because they need those things too. So it's like hard for me to figure that out. Now, maybe if a team like Houston, who's trying to win now, says the guys we have need a pure passer. Like Kevin Durant's going to play off the ball, and we've got all these off the ball players, and we're not maybe excited about Fred VanVleet coming back from the injury. Like that's a team that might say, like, yeah, Josh Giddey really helps us get over the hump because we need that exact skill set. Maybe some other team would do that, but it's hard for me to figure out where there's like a fit where like some other team wants to pay us more for Josh Giddey than he's worth to us, because we also are trying to, just like the comment like we're trying to avoid the bottom three, and I think Josh Giddey is going to help us with that. And I think he's going to help develop some of these young players who are all big men and need someone to set them up. So like Josh Giddey is some value to us. Like people get so polarized because like you can't win a title with him, and I agree. If you start thinking about Josh Giddey in the sense of like, can this guy lead you to a title? Well, of course not. But like, how many $25 million players are you looking at? Like, can he lead you to a title? Like, none. That's not what you pay your $25 million player to do. So it's just kind of like you sort of conflate the statistical productivity as a guy who should lead you to a title, but his contract doesn't reflect that. He's not paid like that. So, his salary reflects the fact that he has like severe flaws. So I just don't think you're going to find a trade that works for him. Like, would I be willing to trade him? Yeah, absolutely. But like, do I think the trade's going to work? Like, probably not. And then Modest, same kind of thing. Like, he's a high upside player. He's young. He's got long-term value. We need players like that. Like, who's going to give us a bigger, higher upside player for Modest? Like we are trying to trade the thing we need for a better version of the thing we need. Like, that's not a trade that you can generally do. So it's not that I think Modest is untouchable. It's just like I don't see how a trade like that is going to make sense. So Jalen Smith might be another guy. Like if he came out on fire, like at the deadline, and a team was like, "Oh, this guy could help us at the deadline, and we want his bird rights." Like maybe that's another guy, get you something back in a way where you can create a win-win. Maybe Isaac Okoro, if he somehow had a great start of the year. So I think those are things where it's like you find like what is the win-win for some other team when you do a trade and you start looking at guys on this team that you can how that fits psychologically. And to me, Trey Jones is like the most obvious of the guys by far, where I can easily see how the win-win can come to play. And like the guys people will talk about more, like I just don't see where the win-win is going to come with another team and us, and it's going to work out.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, we're coming up on hour and 30 here. Man, dude, this has just been awesome. Like, you've given me just like so much perspective. I know you were saying earlier, like this is that you trust in our front office. You trust in Bryson. You just have more trust going into the draft than usual. So that kind of just ties into my last question I had for you. I just want to ask you, like, you've seen it all, man. Like we got people in our Discord right now. We told him to come through. Shout out to Vince, and he was like, "Oh, you got the Podfather in there." Pet came through, and everyone's calling you the Podfather, man. So you've seen it all. I just wanted to ask, like, your thoughts on this next era, and then just to touch on, I guess we'll touch on Stacey just to end it. But just any closing thoughts on the new era?
I mean, I think I'm an optimist. Generally,
same.
I like to be positive. It's actually refreshing now because I was so negative on the Bulls for so long. I hate being like I really hate it.
Rightfully so, though.
And so it's like and I will always tell people, some people will root for negativity to win an argument. I never root for negativity to win an argument. I just this is just what I think. Like I don't want Josh Giddey to be bad so I can. I don't want Ditch to be bad so I can win some internet points. Like. I don't care. I want to watch the team I like. So it's easy to get hung up on that, though, because you can get so emotional talking with people. Like it's easy to get hung up on that. And when I was younger, I did that kind of stuff too. Like I definitely did that when I was in my 20s. Where I would
wanted to smoke.
I would root for dumb stuff because I wanted. It wasn't like points on Twitter back then, but it was the same type of stuff. Like I wanted to be right. I wanted to prove how smart I was. As I've gotten older, I care less about that than I used to. Because just realize I'm wrong all the time. Like I'm right all the time too. Like if you talk about sports for 25 years, you are going to be right about a lot of things and wrong about a lot of things, and that's just how it is. So you just can't get hung up on it anymore. So this front office, I want to be positive, and I loved hearing Bryson Graham's every time heard him talk compared to AK. Like I enjoyed what he said. I think he said like a lot of great things. Really eloquent as a speaker. Most of the process stuff he said, I thought was like made sense to me. Like everything he said, felt very genuine. So all those things, like, is best I could say. Like sounded pretty good. I would say from a resume perspective, like seemed like one of the weaker guys we could have hired. Like basically was at one org. He was at the Hawks for a single year. Pelicans were not that great while he was there. He didn't have like a lot of great mentors there who like had great reputations, and he ended up scouting. And if you look at the Pelicans scouting, like people will say like, well, he did a great job with Herb Jones and Trey Murphy the third. Like he's in scouting for a decade. Like if those are the best players we get in a decade, like I wouldn't be that excited about that as a draft history. Like they're good players. Like I'm not saying he's bad, but like it's like, and his reputation like vastly exceeded that. Like he was on the New York Times top 40 under 40 list. So like whatever he is doing reputationally was like way better than maybe the results. And I think it's hard because it's like we gauge someone's draft history based only on the pick they made because that's all we can see. But they come up with a profile on the board on everyone. Like imagine if you just nailed every single player except the one your team chose. Like you could be the best draft person ever, and then your team picks the wrong guy, and we would never know it. Like we would never know it. So it's like
that's interesting.
It's just kind of like we are making these snap judgments on like 1% of the actual information. So it's crazy, but it's the only 1% we see. So it's like, just what can you do? You can't do anything about it. You know, like it just is what it is. Like we judge based on what we can. But so, I mean, I'm not so excited about his resume. But then, like when I hear him talk, I'm like, yeah, I totally get it. Like, I totally get how this guy got in an interview and Michael Reinsdorf came away saying, "This is the man." Like, I totally get it. So now I hope, I hope that it all works out. You know, like I think the hires he made, Stephen Mervis was another guy who was at the top 40 under 40 of the New York Times list, and that list was like, it wasn't just front office people; it was like coaches, it was like NBA league personnel. So it was like maybe 25 of them were front office people. So like. We picked really bright, young, up-and-coming talent. AC Law is another guy who strikes me that way. So, like, I like that philosophy of building out around young, up-and-coming talent. So I'm optimistic, but, you know, we'll just see what happens. Like, that's all I can say. It's like I have no reason to really feel strongly about it, and nor should anyone else, right? Like, when AK came in, everyone was, like, just super excited about it. And I said at the same time, like, there's no reason to feel excited about this. Like, he might be great. I hope he is. But there's no reason to be excited about it either way. Like, you just don't know how that it's going to go. And so I like him a lot more than I liked AK. Like, AK, I was pretty down on, like, really fast for a number of reasons. Now, he's not made any moves yet, but at least every time I've heard him speak, I've liked what he said. And he speaks. Like, he's actually done more than, like, 2 interviews. Like AK did, like, 4 interviews a year. Like I think I've already seen more Bryson Graham than I would see in AK's first year. So I think that's just a positive. Like that, you know, he speaks and he represents the team well. I think it's going to be great culturally. I think players will, to the extent they care about the front office, which I think is really small. I mean, I think they care primarily about money, and I don't mean that in any bad way because we all care primarily about money. Like if someone offered you a 20% raise to go do the same job you do somewhere else, like who's saying no to that? Like no one. So like, you know, so I don't mean that in any negative way at all, but like to the extent people do care about like the organization, I think he's going to help rebuild the reputation, even though I think that matters a lot less than most people do. I do think he will put the Bulls in a much better light. So that's a positive, but we'll see what he does. Like he has got a transformative amount of power this year, like with all the cap room, and it's not a great free agency year, but there's a lot of flexibility, whether it's buying picks, whether it's, you know, like pushing cap room into the future, whether it's, you know, using it to acquire players that are good in trade by making unbalanced trades. Like he's got a lot of flexibility there, and he's got, you know, a draft pick that has an elite prospect and another prospect that could be really good in the same draft. So Noah Senge coming in, so they're actually positioned to kind of maybe not be a title contender, but to get out of this like dumpster fire they've been in for the last 4 years, it would not surprise me if you could build a nucleus of a 45 to 50 win team, which would be frankly, just pretty enjoyable. Like most rebuilds are not going to lead to a title. That's just the way it is. And so if you are title or bust, you're just in for a sad life experience. Like I hate to tell that's just what it's going to be. So if we get to be like a regular second round team, I'm pretty amped about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I hope we do better, but unless we get the next Wemby, like probably not. Like maybe Caleb Wilson will be the MVP, but if not, we're probably not going to be a title contender, and he's probably not going to be because most people won't be. Like that's just the sad reality. But we can be a good team again, and I think we're positioned well to be there. And everything I've seen of Graham so far seems positive. I just hope once the decisions are made and we get our first real intel about what he's going to do, that we feel the same.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, man, that's just good to hear. And I guess just the last thing I want to touch on, we have we're gonna be back on Thursday. We usually are only on like Tuesday or Sunday, but we got like a special edition coming on Thursday with Zachary Draves. Derek Briscoe, he came in, he shouted you out and just said hi. He's got something going with this dude, John C. Red. They do a Nothing But Bull, so we're gonna be on with them on Thursday, just shouting out Stacey King and just sharing just good memories. But did you have anything that you wanted to say, like your favorite memories from Stacey throughout the years, man?
It's just so shocking.
Yeah.
And like I don't know like how many people close to you have passed away. And like I'm not gonna pretend Stacey King is close to me. Like he's not. He's a celebrity figure. But there's people like when you watch every game, you hear him all the time. And like, it's like it's terrible to say. Like I complain about Stacey's analysis like all the time. Like
yeah, right. Like a family member though. It's like a family member.
But it's like I always said like he's one of the best in the industry. And if you watch like a lot of League Pass games and you hear all the other local announcers, I would pit Adam Amin and Stacey King
overall
anyone's local guys.
Yes.
New York guys are also amazing. Knicks guys are incredible. I love them. I think they might be the best if I'm being like totally honest.
Stacey paved the way for them, though, to me.
But Stacey King and Adam Amin are tremendous. And Stacey, a lot of people have said this. I'm not the first one to say it. He followed Johnny Red Kerr, who's like a Bulls legend, and like for people of the younger era, where like no one could ever follow him, and he did. He's like amazing, and like all the nicknames, all of the catchphrases. Like I loved Stacey when he was in full hype mode, and he was just like describing like
the best.
Like it's just like he's so much energy and so much positivity, and it's like it's impossible to imagine what next year is going to look like. And the only thing I'd say is it's impossible to imagine when Johnny Red Kerr retired what that was going to look like. And Stacey pulled it off. Like it's actually crazy. We've had such great people for so long. Like been kind of
got so lucky.
And so I can't even imagine how sad like everyone in the team is, right? Like the people who really know him, like and are close to him. It's because he's so positive. Like you can just guess. Like every story you hear about him is just like, yeah, he took the time to hang with me. He took the time to talk with me. He inspired me. He lifted me up. Like all these people, and so it's like the people who are close to him, it just has to be utterly devastating. Like for me, it's mostly shocking. Like I'm arm's length. I've talked with him in person maybe 3 times, 2-3 times, a few times, not for any great length of time. So it's more like shocking. And I can't imagine just how devastating it must be for the people who are really close to him, because it just seemed like such a high caliber individual. I've had people like that to me who are close to me who passed away. It was like, it was like years to get over. Like it's just years to get over. And so yeah, it's just you can't believe it's real. I don't think it will feel real until I tune into that game and there's someone else calling it. Like I don't think it will feel real until that point. Like it's like a thing you read on the internet, but it won't feel real until that game. And then I think there's going to be, for everyone in Bulls Nation, a whole new wave of sadness that hits. Right? Like it's like you have this wave now because all the news is coming out, and you're seeing all the memorial pieces, and you're just seeing all these stories, and you're learning all these news stories, right? Like you're just seeing all these shared memories from people who are like, oh, I had this moment with Stacey and this happened. And it's it's crazy how many of those there are. And then like in another few months, you're gonna have this whole new wave when like whoever it is has to take that mic, and God bless that person. because like I can't even imagine how much pressure and how difficult that's going to be on whoever that is.
Oh.
Like that's just going to be so hard. And you're now at this new wave of just like I can't believe how real this is to me now, because it's just like he's just been the voice forever. And yeah, I don't even know what the team can do. Like it's just going to be just difficult. And so yeah, I mean, rest in peace. Prayers for his family. All the people who've been affected or are close to him. Like I have great empathy for what you're going through to lose someone who's great and close to you and was so obviously caring and loving and just filled with positive energy. It's just the world is a sad place when you lose these people filled with such positive energy.
Yeah,
that was probably too long. I'm sorry, but it's just it's
perfect,
tough when you start getting your thoughts out. I mean, it's hard to to see that kind of thing happen. So.
No, it wasn't too long at all, man. We're all about, like we said, we're all about being long-winded here. We had we love what we do, man. Like people keep saying, like I see it every week. I don't view myself as a podcaster. I'm just a guy that is blessed to be able to, like you said, man. There's just so many outlets now and so many ways of doing this now. Where all I'm doing is we're just going live from Twitter. That's it. I'm like, hey, Doug, you want to talk about basketball with me and the guys? You're like, yeah,
yeah, exactly.
That's all we're doing, man. So like, please, when you come on here, man, like be long-winded. Just be yourself, because we love listening to you talk, man. We love hearing your thoughts, and I feel like I couldn't have put that any better than what you just did. So it was really cool hearing your thoughts on Stacey. Like I said, we're gonna do an episode on Thursday. So like, I don't know if Mike and Joe, if you want to say something quick before we close off here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Doug summarized my thoughts pretty well, and Stacey very obviously isn't a family member. I haven't had the pleasure of talking to Stacey. I believe I've met his son Eric King in passing, but his family is great. I know they must be going through a lot, so prayers out to them. But my biggest thing is it's going to be tremendously big shoes to fill, because Stacey, his death hit me tremendously hard. It felt like a family member in a weird way that I didn't expect, just because when you're a diehard basketball fan, you spend so much time listening to these people's voices,
right,
sort of interacting with them, whether online or in person, that you don't realize they become a sort of part of your routine, sort of such a massive part of your life. So Stacey's death hit me pretty hard, and I think the biggest reason why is, the Chicago Bulls, obviously a massive organization, but I follow a team where for most of my adult life has not been very good. They've been up and down, middling, and I'd be having some of the worst days in the world. I would find myself cackling like a child and Stacey being just something he would say during a random Bulls game on a Wednesday night. So I owe him a lot over the years. During 2023 specifically, I remember a random Hornets game. Gustavo on Twitter, if anybody knows him in the Bulls community, shout him out. He had brought it up to me that Stacey King, the Bulls had won, I think, by 11 points against the Hornets. I believe Steve Clifford was coaching, and he called a timeout with like 4 seconds left when Jim Boylan around the time was getting famous for that, I believe. And Stacey King said, "Oh man, Clifford must have an 11-point play cooked up." And I laughed for so long. It was just one of those things where you could just be having the worst day in the world, and Stacey just knew kind of exactly what to say when you were watching to sort of turn things around. So rest in peace, Stacey King, and it's definitely not going to feel the same watching Bulls games without him for a long, long time.
Yeah. Joe,
did
you anything?
Quick? So and I'm going to tie it to actually the three of you guys. So, and again, Doug, I know you and I are similar ages. Like watching the Bull, going through the Jordan experience and the Bulls experience, like those guys. It was everything. They were all superstars. They might as well have all been superstars. And then, I remember like, somebody was like, Stacey's coaching in CBA. And then he came on and it was, like, it was like death when the Bulls, when Jordan retired and Phil left and everything. It was like, what? And when we got Brent Barry and I think Ron Harper stayed and Tony Kukoc, it was just not a good team. And then we got Brand, and then there was this whole rebuild. And, it was really exciting. And I was telling the guys in Discord that I watched the Bulls when I was in Iraq as an officer. And when the year that Ben Gordon, it was the Scott Skiles Bulls, when Ben Gordon was hit, like he was averaging 15 points a game, and like 10 of those points came in the fourth quarter. And so I think he ended up being Rookie of the Year. And it was just so exciting. And then we fell, and then we got Rose, and then we had Stacey, And it felt like that they were symbiotic, you know, and it just, to your point, Michael, it always felt like that they were so important because I was in Iraq and I was watching them, and just there was so much emotion. It was so emotionally charged for me. But one of the things that's really cool, and Doug, you must have said this, I don't know, in the last 6 or 7 months. You're like, there's no basketball has no I forgot how you worded it. Maybe like altruistic. It has no there's. It's not like this. It's not for the greater good. Basketball. It's just entertainment. It's just something for us to build community with. It's not do or die. It's not life or death. And what Jordan and Michael have built is like they've built this community that's built on altruism and community and conscientiousness. And like Stacey embodied like the community. Like he was the voice of the people. He was the voice of every podcaster everywhere. Even if we didn't agree with him, he was like our big brother or Uncle Stacey that had something to say. And one of the things that's really cool about particularly what you three have done is you really have focused on, hey, this is just, you know, like you said, Doug, they can't even afford me in the NBA. Like, this is for my entertainment. This is for the community. This is for fun. And I'm super proud to be a Bulls fan, and in large part because I used to love just listening to Adam laugh at Stacey. Like, Adam laughing at Stacey made me laugh. And so you guys, the three of you guys, obviously are a voice of the people. And I've said this to you before. And I think it's super important because I think that in some weird way, Stacey was the guy. He was sort of like the head voice, even if he was like off, like he had the worst barbershop hot takes ever on Twitter or wherever. He was still like our voice, and he like understood us. And like, so I'm super proud to like really to be a part of this because in some way it feels like an extension of him. And the community that we're building, it feels like it's part of something that like really that we all can have fun and enjoy. And it's not doesn't have to be life or death. It could just be a good time. So R.I.P. Stacey definitely means a lot to me. And I was crying in my chat with these guys, so I won't cry tonight. So, but thanks.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna try not to say too much because I'll fucking break down right here, man. But like, it just means a lot to hear you say that, Joe, because like you talked about, like, you know, just going to Iraq and shit. And like for me, I've just spent like so many years living in Chicago. Like a lot of my years as a kid, I was in Chicago, and like there'd be like no bullshit, man. Like nights at my grandpa's house on the west side, where like you hear gunshots outside, man, and like them years, there'd be times I come on the Bulls game to like drown out the sound of like gunshots. You feel me? So it's like it was kind of like a father figure. You know what I mean? In a weird way, it's just somebody that like just showed you the light in the darkness. And like I feel like I grew up like Stacey is the voice of almost my childhood, like me becoming a man. You know, and it's just crazy, man. Like you said, like basketball is life or death, but like for some of us, like in life, when you're just going through those hard times and you watch it from Iraq, it's an escape. And I've told multiple people, like that's why I go so hard in the Discord to like kind of stop people from fighting each other or just arguing or just talking crazy when we don't have to. Because I'm like, man, I know it's just basketball. Like it's kind of something that we should use to like come together and like we should talk shit together, have fun together, because life is hard enough as it is on its own. So you use like basketball and stuff like this to like kind of just come together and have a good time, man. You know, and I feel like again, like that's just been like my whole motto is just like just come together and have a good time, man. And a dude like Stacey, like you said, man, it's just he was that voice, he was that light in the darkness for so many of us, and it's just crazy, man. Like when I started writing articles last year, shout out to AD when I came on the OnTap. And when I came on the roundtable now with you guys and with Mike and Gavin, my goal was, bro, I'm like, man, you know what? I'm gonna start going super hard because I want to work hard enough to maybe one day we'll fuck around and meet Stacey. You know, like Mike goes to the games, he interviews the players during the year. Gavin, they interview the players. So I'm like, damn, like maybe if I work hard enough, like I'm gonna fuck around and Gavin will be like, hey, you wanna go cover the game? And when I go cover the game, I'm gonna get to meet Stacey and like shake his hand and just tell him like, thanks for everything, you know. So like No bullshit. I swear to God on my life, the morning he passed, I literally was on the laptop and I was looking at like people that were following on the Roundtables page, and I was like, damn it, like I can't DM Stacy. I was trying to DM Stacy to be like, hey, Stacy, man, we're doing something cool with the Roundtables, and like I went to his page. I'm like, maybe I could find like his email or something. I said, you know what? No, it's cool. I think if we just keep busting our ass organically over time, I'll just get to meet Stacy in person. I'll tell him like, hey, I was looking for your email, but like now we're here. And then he passed like 3 hours later. So I was kind of just I was speechless, man. And I almost canceled this episode. Like I told Doug and I told you guys, like I didn't even want to do pods this whole week, but just a couple people that we're talking to, they just keep saying like, and like you said, Joe, like he'd be proud. This is something that he would endorse is what we're doing, and just
Yes,
he
that's
would
right.
want the best way to honor somebody is just to like keep doing something that they will be proud of. So it's a major blow, but it's a major blow. But just hearing stuff like what you're saying is just like a motivation, and I just hope that we can keep doing stuff here that he will be proud of, and I hope that this team going forward, like they vindicate this man who believed in the team when the team didn't believe in themselves, man. Like the Bulls have been ass. They've been ass for so many years, but like you couldn't tell it. Like you turn on the game just to hear Stacey talk shit. You turn on the games to hear Stacey being like, Robert Ory, what? Like just and like you said, like him and Adam Amin or the Nationwide jingle. Like I was talking to my girl, like he's like that uncle to me, man, from afar. He had like a woman commentator on the game last year, and they were doing the Nationwide jingle, and he was nice to her. I'm like, this nigga Stacy, excuse me. I'm like, this dude Stacy. Like, you mean that everybody else that's seen a Nationwide jingle, but for this lady, he was like, okay, you decent. But like that's who Stacy was, man. Old school player, barbershop elite, just like the lovable uncle or the brother amongst our community, man. And for some of us, like a father figure. So it's a huge blow. But to all your points, I just think that it's almost like he'll be there with us. Like I think the Bulls will make him proud. I think that everything that we do as people and just in this community coming together, just he'll live through it if we just stick together and do good things. But
Absolutely.
yeah, man. So this was on that note, Doug, just thank you so much for coming on, man. My bad, I forgot. I got so fucking in my head. I've got to put you back. But man, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been super cool just hearing about your origin story, because I've heard so much of, like I know you somewhat, but like I feel like I came in towards the end, so like I've been hearing so much about you for a while now. So it was super cool to just hear your origins and just and for your perspective on everything tonight. It's been awesome. I've learned a lot tonight.
I mean, there's nothing I love more than talking basketball with people who want to talk basketball. One of the main reasons I do this, and even started this like way back in 2004 when I really got into the forums and all this other stuff, was just no one in my life likes basketball. Like, no one. So I love it. I have no one to talk about it with. I'm like, I gotta find people to talk basketball. So I thank you for having me on. It's awesome. It's awesome just getting to know you guys better and just chat basketball. Like it's just and letting me just ramble like endlessly. like hours. So like I think I like we're 2 hours in, and I think I spoke for like an hour and 50 minutes of it. So
that's how it should be, man.
I apologize for that, but like
no,
thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here anytime. We definitely like chat it up in the Discord or other places on X, all that kind of stuff. So.
Absolutely, man. Well, yeah, hopefully I told Fred when Fred came out with Marquet, that was one of our first episodes together. Well, I know like Mike and Gavin did it before I came on, but like one of my first episodes with Mike, we had Fred and Mark, which was awesome. Those two, how they are with each other.
Yeah,
so
it's hilarious.
And we said back then like we're gonna have to do like an episode where we have like all three of you with us, and like so that would be super cool to do a part 2. But
that'll be a hoot.
But on that note, guys, thank you to the chat. Thank you to Mike's Dogs. And just,
had to make an appearance.
Yeah, they said peace out too, man. So yeah, thank you guys all for coming through, and we'll be back on Thursday. Like I said, with Zachary Draves, we might have a couple more people. I got the details coming, but until then, man, thank you guys. Much love, and we'll see you next time.
Later, Doug.
Peace, Doug.
Thanks, guys.
remember double shifts, working while the world was sleeping. Hands cold, heart steady. Had a promise I was keeping. Now the lights hit different when they see me in the city. Funny how they watch now when they never roll with me. See me in the city. Funny how they watch now.